Alright, this is something different. I'm doing a comparison over a wider time span for liquid ice, hot water, and no soda ash for your tie-dyeing, so that you can have a better idea of how long the dyes need to batch before you can do the washout under different conditions. So, I'm going to be testing liquid at 6, 12, 18, 24, 36, and 48 hours in batch. I am going to be testing ice dyes at 6, 12, 18, 24, 36, 48 hours as well. Hot water, which is going to be about 145, 150 degrees for 5 and 30 minutes and for 1 and 2 hours. And then one that's never has soda ash on it, strictly dye. That one will batch for 48 hours. Okay. So, the liquid and the ice, or liquid and ice, have been soaked in soda ash for at least 20 minutes and then spun out until they're just damp. All of the hot water versions and the no soda ash version do not have soda ash in them. The hot water versions will have soda ash mixed into the dye before the dye is placed on these four. But again, this one will never have any soda ash anytime. Okay, I think that explains everything. Each of these will be, I think, a spiral, because that should be the fastest thing for me to make that many times. So let's go ahead and get started tying these up, and then we can move forward with the tests. So this is what I'm going to go with, because I'm testing how well it saturates and how well the dye stays in versus actual pattern. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And roll that up. And that's what we'll have for each of them. Okay, so we have the ice dye, liquid dye, the hot water, and the no soda ash. Going with two colors. Bright Azure from Grateful Dyes and Black Cherry from Dharma. I'm going to try and keep it to where it's somewhat consistent between all of these as far as the dye placement, but you know what we're working with here, so we'll see what we can do. I'm not going to show all the washouts. I'm going to show maybe a few, because that would just get tedious to edit if nothing else. And they'll go into the wash either immediately with whatever I'm currently washing otherwise, or they'll sit in a bath of cold water so that the process doesn't continue. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start the time from the time that I put the hot water on this, since these are 5:30, 60, 120 minutes. I'm just going to use a syringe for this. Alright, the first 5 minutes is up, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this one. Wash it out in cold water, and the process begins. Alright, 30 minutes from the start, so we'll go ahead and pull the 30-minute one. Give this a wash out, and wait for the next. Alright, the 1 hour one. And off to wash. Alright, we're at 2 hours from the start, so this is the last of the hot water ones. Go ahead and wash this out. Time for the 6 hours. Alright, we're at the 12-hour mark. So let's go ahead and pull those out. Rinse those out, and wait for another 6 hours. It's hour 18! And here we go again. Pulling hour 18 for each of the liquid and ice. Off to wash them out. Yay! Alright, we are 24 hours in. So, taking the ice and the liquid dye, rinsing those off, and we're good for another 12 hours. Alright, we are at the 36-hour mark. So go ahead and pull the ice and liquids out. One more. 12 hours from now, the last 3. Woo! Yay! We're at the 48-hour point. I'm done. Finally. Off to wash all this. Alright, let's start with the hot water irrigation first. Now, technically with hot water irrigation, you should do a spray and not a pour like I did. We're going with it for this. So we have the 5-minute, 30-minute, 1 hour, and 2 hour. You can see quite a bit of difference between the 1 and 2 hour and the 5 and 30-minute. With that said, I think I like the 5-minute and 30-minute better. And maybe because it's simply a different look that I'm used to seeing on an ice dye. And again, that's probably it. But there is definitely a difference between the time that you leave it. There's definitely more spread of the colors at the 2-hour mark than at the rest of the times. Although, oddly, it looks like the 30-minute has less than the 5. And yes, I'm sure these numbers are correct because I checked them every time I pulled them out and rinsed them out. So they are correct. You can definitely see the color growing in intensity over the period of time. So now you have a better idea what you can shoot for color-wise just based on the time for the hot water irrigation. Alright, on to the next. And here we have the liquids. 6, 12, 18, 24, 36, and 48 hours. It doesn't look like there's a drastic difference until you start comparing something like the 6 hours to the 36 hours, and then you see quite a bit of this extra feathering, where the dye actually bled out more. What's interesting to me is the 48 hour and the 36 hour. It looks like 36 to me looks better than the 48. Now, oh, and before you ask, did I keep this wet the full 48 hours? Yes. The environment here was about 75% humidity during that time. So it was still wet at the 48-hour mark. And as far as the temperature goes, it was between 75 and 78 degrees the entirety of the time for this period. Okay. So I don't think I really need to talk about this a whole lot. It's pretty obvious that the 6 hours does not have as much saturation as the 24, 36, and 48 hours does. The 18 is really close. It is darker, and I don't know how much of this is actually showing up in the video versus me seeing it in real life, but there is more of the saturation in the 24 than the 36, but not by much. And there's obviously going to be irregularity between each of them, simply by the nature of the tie-dye. But it gives a better idea overall as far as the batch time versus the saturation. Allows you to control for more of a pastel versus a darker saturation solely based on time and not necessarily accounting for the colors that you used. To the next. And here we have the ice die. Yes, I started the timer as soon as the ice was placed versus when the ice melted. So if you allow for about 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours for the ice to melt, probably closer to 3, then you could offset these. Because most people start their timer for the batch time for ice die after the ice melts. So in theory, this is 3 hours, 9 hours, and on up. For the sake of this test, we're calling it 6, 12, etc. Okay, in case you can't see it, 6, 12, 18, 24, 36, and 48. I don't think I need to say much about this either. What's odd is how dark this is compared to this, and that's 12 versus 24 hours. But over the period of time, it did generally skew, like you would expect, that the longer it set, the darker it became, as far as going for the dark spots. Now there is more fill in here because these two didn't appear to be tied as tight as these three, for example. And there is variability, again, in all of tie-dye. But could you pull something at 6 hours when it's ice dyed? Yes, you could. You're just going to have more white areas and less saturation in the darker colors. Now what about light colors? Yes, I know, somebody's saying it. I want to see what yellow does or green does. From experience, yellow probably wouldn't be very visible at 6 hours versus the 48 hours. Am I going to do another test like this for the lighter colors? I honestly don't know. Comment down below if you really want to see lighter colors. Tell me what colors you want to see, and I will seriously consider doing it. Okay, so we've got this done, which leaves us only with one left. So, just to do some comparisons. Hot water at 5 minutes, liquid for 6 hours, ice for 6 hours, or 3 hours if you want to count the other way, and the no soda ash. Everything has been laundered a single cycle. As you can see, there's some dye remaining, but it's certainly not anywhere close to what these other three are at the minimum times. This is the importance of soda ash. So let's see what happens if we do more wash cycles on this one. I'm going to cut this in half, and I'm going to wash 1/2 of it 5 more times. And we'll do a side by side and see what it looks like after those 5 times.